Gildan Media presents, in partnership with Simple Truths, The Simple Truths of Service, inspired by Johnny the Bagger, by Ken Blanchard and Barbara Glanz, read by Don Hagen. Introduction by Ken Blanchard. Years ago, you could abuse customers and they had no choice. There was nobody else doing your business. Today, things are very different. If you don't take care of your customers, somebody is waiting, ready and willing to do it. Today, your competitive advantage is not the quality of your product or service. If you don't have a high-quality product or service, you're not even in the game. Your competitive edge today cannot be your price, because someone can always undercut your price. What you need is a fair price. The real competitive edge you have today is how you treat your customers. The one thing your competition can't take away from you is the relationship your people have with your customers. That's why I fell in love with Barbara Glanz's story of Johnny the Bagger. With her blessing, I've shared the story of Johnny the Bagger over and over again, everywhere I go, to illustrate that every person can make a difference for his or her customers. Let me give you an example of the impact this story has had. Our training and consulting company was asked to develop a customer service training program for all the frontline employees involved in the opening of the new San Diego Padres Stadium, Petco Park. Since the building of the park was a controversial proposition, the top managers wanted the fans to have a very special experience in the new park. As we helped them set the customer service vision for the park, they decided that they were in the Major League memory business. Every night, every employee, whether they were in food service, maintenance, security, or what have you, was expected to focus his or her energy on creating good fan memories. As part of the training, I made a short video telling the story of Johnny. I ended the video looking into the camera and saying directly to every park employee, "Are you going to be a Johnny tonight?" This video was shown to everyone, no matter whether they were part-time or full-time. A number of the department managers told me that every night before the gates opened, they would ask their people, "Are you going to be a Johnny tonight?" The first summer that Petco Park was in business, they got 7,500 unsolicited notes and letters from fans, telling stories of how they had been blown away by the service they had received from someone in the park. For example, a friend of ours ordered 2 fish tacos at one of the concession stands. When he got back to his seat, he took a bite and discovered that they had given him chicken tacos. Since he was yearning for fish tacos, he returned to the concession stand to exchange them. When he told the counter person what had happened, the young man's initial response was, "Let me talk to my supervisor." A more experienced worker next to him heard the conversation and said, "You don't have to ask the supervisor. This man did not get what he wanted, so give him 2 fish tacos. We work for him." Another person told me his wife brought their little baby to the game one night and ran out of milk. She went to one of the concession stands and asked for some milk. A young man behind the counter said, "We don't sell milk here, but I know where I can get it. What's your seat number?" This young man got someone to cover his station while he raced out of the ballpark and down the street to a 7-Eleven, where he bought some milk. He came back, heated the milk up, and took it to the waiting mother. She couldn't believe it. Neither will you after you read the Johnny story and see how you and everyone in your organization can make a difference in your customers' lives. The memories you create will keep people coming back and bringing their friends for years to come.
Johnny the Bagger by Barbara Glanz. As an author and a professional speaker, I travel all over the world and speak to groups about one of my favorite topics, building customer loyalty. A few years ago, I was leading a customer service session for a large supermarket chain where I had the opportunity to speak to a crowd of 3,000 frontline service people. Truck drivers, cashiers, baggers, produce people, stockers, floral specialists, bakers, and others. During the course of my presentation, I said, every one of you can make a difference and create meaningful memories for your customers that will motivate them to come back. How? Put your personal signature on the job. Go home tonight and think about something you can do for your customers to make them feel special. A memory that will make them want to come back and shop at your store again. I then directed the audience's attention to one of my personal signatures, the nearly 100 bright-colored, handmade posters lining the walls, printed with all kinds of quotations. Whether I'm speaking to 30 or 3,000 people, I always line the walls of the room or ballroom with these posters because they change the feeling in the room by adding color, inspiration, and fun. They take a lot of extra time to put up and they're bulky to lug around the country, but they make me stand out as a speaker and provide a wonderful memory for audiences, so it is well worth the extra effort. There are lots of ways you can give your own personal signature to your work. For example, I know a baggage attendant who decided that his personal signature would be to collect all the luggage tags that fell off customers' suitcases. In the past, the tags had been simply tossed into the garbage. The attendant decided that in his free time he would send the tags back to the owners with a note saying, "Thank you for flying with us." I met a graphic artist who always encloses a piece of sugarless gum in everything he sends his customers, so they will never throw anything away from him. I heard of a senior manager who uses stickers and Kleenex as his personal signature. When the news is something he knows they won't like very much, he staples a piece of Kleenex to the corner of the memo. But whenever he sends a memo with good news, he attaches a smiley face sticker. I always leave my telephone number and email address with audiences, encouraging them to call me if they have questions or want to share a success story they experienced by adding a personal signature to their work. About a month after I had spoken to the supermarket folks, I received a call from a frontline customer contact person, a 19-year-old bagger named Johnny. The caller, who proudly informed me that he was a Down syndrome youngster, told me his story. "Barbara, I liked what you talked about," Johnny said excitedly, "but I didn't think I could do anything special for our customers. After all, I'm just a bagger." Then I had an idea. He decided that every night when he came home from work, he would find a thought for the day. "If I can't find a saying I like," Johnny said proudly, "I think one up." When Johnny had a good saying, his dad helped him enter his thought for the day 6 times on a page in the computer. Every night, they printed out 50 pages. Johnny cut out each quote and signed his name on the back of every one of them. "Then I put them in a paper bag I keep beside me at work," he continued. "When I finish bagging someone's groceries, I put my thought for the day in their bag and say, 'Thanks for shopping with us.'" It touched me to think that this young man, with a job that most people would say is not important, had made it important by creating precious memories for all his customers. A month later, the store manager called me. He said, "Barbara, you won't believe what happened today. When I was making my rounds and got up front where the cashiers are, I found the line at Johnny's checkout was 3 times longer than anyone else's. It went all the way down the frozen food aisle. I was concerned, so I announced, 'Get more cashiers out here, get more lanes open,' all the while trying to get people to change lanes. But no one would move. They all said, 'No, it's okay, we want to be in Johnny's lane. We want his thought for the day.'" The store manager continued, "It was a joy to watch Johnny delight the customers. I got a lump in my throat when one woman came up and grabbed my hand and said, 'I used to shop at your store only once a week, but now I come in every time I go by because I want to get Johnny's thought for the day.'" "I imagine that helps the bottom line," I said to the manager. "You bet," he replied. "Who do you think is the most important person in our whole store now?" "Johnny, of course." A few months later, the store manager called me again. "Barbara," he said, "Johnny has transformed our store. Now, when the floral department has a broken flower or an unused corsage, they go out on the floor and find an elderly woman or a little girl and pin it on them." One of our butchers loves Snoopy. He bought thousands of Snoopy stickers, and each time he wraps a piece of meat, He puts a sticker on it. All of our cashiers now have their own personal signature. Everyone's having a lot of fun creating memories. Our customers are talking about us, in a good way, coming back and bringing their friends. What a wonderful spirit of service spread throughout that store. And all because one young man with Down syndrome who decided he could make a difference. As I tell my audiences, every one of us in this room can make a difference. We can all be a Johnny. And with tears in nearly every eye, they agree.
The Simple Truths of Great Service by Ken Blanchard. The following stories of great service are simple but powerful. They're all about creating memories, building relationships, using your unique gifts, and caring for people. No matter what your job or position is in an organization, the real question is, are you going to choose to be a Johnny today? 1. Great service inspires stories. A number of years ago, Sheldon Bowles and I wrote a book called Raving Fans. We argued that to keep your customers today, you couldn't be content just to satisfy them. You have to create raving fans. These are customers who are so excited about the way you treat them that they want to tell stories about you. They become part of your sales force. That's exactly what Johnny did. He created raving fan customers. My mother, when she was 90, gave me a beautiful example of raving fan service. One day she went to her refrigerator to get some ice. When she opened the ice section, water came pouring out. Something clearly was wrong. Since she was an independent cuss and wanted to solve the problem herself, she went to the yellow pages. She called appliance service companies one after the other, only to be told that the earliest anyone could visit her was in 3 weeks. Now, if you're 90 years old, 3 weeks is a long time. Discouraged, she was about to call me for help when she saw a little ad that said, "Same-day service." She called the number, and soon a friendly voice was saying, "We'd be happy to fix your refrigerator today, Mrs. Blanchard. When would you like us to come?" "I have a choice?" my mom responded in amazement. "Absolutely," he said. "How about 2 o'clock?" Mom replied. Not only did a serviceman show up at 2, he even had tools and knew what a refrigerator was. He fixed the fridge, and as he was leaving, he handed his business card to my amazed and happy mom. It had his home phone number on the back. "Any time, night or day, you have a problem with this refrigerator, you can give me a call," he said. What do you think my mother was doing for the next 3 days? She was calling everyone she knew who was still alive about the service she had received. She had become a raving fan. That's exactly how the customers in Johnny's store felt about him. Aim for service, and success will follow. Albert Schweitzer. Two. Great service uses outside-the-box thinking. One way to get customers to brag about you is to begin thinking outside the box. That's exactly what the owner of this appliance repair company my mother bragged about did. When I called him to find out how he could service people the day they called, he explained his story. It turned out that he had been a fix-it man in Massachusetts. Because of his health, his doctors suggested he move to a warmer climate. When he got to San Diego, he would find out when people were moving into a house they had just bought. He would knock on the door and tell them he was a fix-it man. If they needed any painting or repairs done, he would be happy to do it at a reasonable price. All he asked was that they agree to refer him to other customers if they liked his work. This guy always showed up on time, did what he said he would do with high quality, and charged a reasonable price. People loved his work. He built his business up so much that when old customers would call to get him to do something, very often he didn't have time because he was so busy. a number of people suggested to him that he start his own company. But he was reluctant because he was concerned about managing employees and having a big payroll. One day he woke up in the middle of the night with a brilliant idea. About 30% of the people living in San Diego are retirees. Many retirees are bored. They'd love to have something to do, and if they can help other people, that's even more special. So he put an ad in the local paper that said, "Retirees, if you're good at fixing things, want to help people and make some extra money, give me a call." It turns out he had 25 to 30 retirees on call every single day, so if a customer like my mother called, he had someone he could send out to her. And he didn't have the problem of a big payroll. If the people didn't work, they didn't get paid. Laughingly, he told me that he had a hard time paying some of the people because it goofed up their Social Security. They just loved the work. How's that for out-of-the-box thinking? Johnny didn't do too badly on that score either. The best way to have a good idea is to have lots of ideas. Linus Pauling. Three, great service is a choice. No one can make you serve your customers well. That's because great service is a choice. Years ago, my friend Harvey McKay told me a wonderful story about a cab driver that proved this point. He was waiting in line for a ride at the airport. When a cab pulled up, the first thing Harvey noticed was that the taxi was polished to a bright shine. Smartly dressed in a white shirt, black tie, and freshly pressed black slacks, the cab driver jumped out and rounded the car to open the back passenger door for Harvey. He handed my friend a laminated card and said, "I'm Wally, your driver. While I'm loading your bags in the trunk, I'd like you to read my mission statement." Taken aback, Harvey read the card. It said, "Wally's mission statement. To get my customers to their destination in the quickest, safest, and cheapest way possible in a friendly environment." This blew Harvey away, especially when he noticed that the inside of the cab matched the outside, spotlessly clean. As he slid behind the wheel, Wally said, "Would you like a cup of coffee? I have a thermos of regular and one of decaf." My friend said jokingly, "No, I'd prefer a soft drink." Wally smiled and said, "No problem. I have a cooler up front with regular and Diet Coke, water, and orange juice." Almost stuttering, Harvey said, "I'll take a Diet Coke." Handing him his drink, Wally said, "If you'd like something to read, I have the Wall Street Journal, Time, Sports Illustrated, and USA Today." As they were pulling away, Wally handed my friend another laminated card. "These are the stations I get and the music they play if you'd like to listen to the radio." And as if that weren't enough, Wally told Harvey that he had the air conditioning on and asked if the temperature was comfortable for him. Then he advised Harvey of the best route to his destination for that time of day. He also let him know that he'd be happy to chat and tell him about some of the sights, or, if Harvey preferred, to leave him with his own thoughts. "Tell me, Wally," my amazed friend asked the driver, "have you always served customers like this?" Wally smiled into the rearview mirror. "No, not always. In fact, it's only been in the last 2 years. My first 5 years driving, I spent most of my time complaining like all the rest of the cabbies do. Then I heard the personal growth guru Wayne Dyer on the radio one day. He had just written a book called You'll See It When You Believe It. Dyer said that if you get up in the morning expecting to have a bad day, you'll rarely disappoint yourself. He said, stop complaining. Differentiate yourself from your competition. Don't be a duck. Be an eagle. Ducks quack and complain. Eagles soar above the crowd. That hit me right between the eyes, said Wally. Dyer was really talking about me. I was always quacking and complaining, so I decided to change my attitude and become an eagle. I looked around at the other cabs and their drivers. The cabs were dirty, the drivers were unfriendly, and the customers were unhappy. So I decided to make some changes. I put in a few at a time. When my customers responded well, I did more. "I take it this has paid off for you," Harvey said. "It sure has," Wally replied. "My first year as an Eagle, I doubled my income from the previous year. This year, I'll probably quadruple it. You were lucky to get me today. I don't sit at cab stands anymore. My customers call me for appointments on my cell phone or leave a message on my answering machine. If I can't pick them up myself, I get a reliable cabbie friend to do it, and I take a piece of the action." Wally was phenomenal. He was running a limo service out of a yellow cab. I've probably told that story to more than 50 cab drivers over the years, and only 2 took the idea and ran with it. Whenever I go to their cities, I give them a call. The rest of the drivers quacked like ducks and told me all the reasons they couldn't do any of what I was suggesting. Johnny the bagger and Wally the cab driver made a different choice. They decided to stop quacking like ducks and start soaring like eagles. How about you? Always give the customer more than they expect. Nelson Boswell. "4. Great service starts with a clear vision." Great service is not an accident. It starts by deciding what kind of experience you want your customers to have, a clear vision. In the early 1970s, when everybody was going to self-service gasoline stations, my co-author Sheldon Bowles said, "What a fabulous time to go full service. There will be no competition." So he and his partners developed a full-service gas station called Domo Gas. They knew that if people had a choice, they certainly wouldn't choose to come to a gas station. They also knew that when customers did come, they wanted to get in and out as quickly as possible. The unique customer service vision that Sheldon and his partners imagined was an Indianapolis 500 pit stop. All the attendants at Domo Gas were dressed up in red jumpsuits. If you drove into a Domo gas station, 2 or 3 people would race out of the hut to your car. Somebody would look under the hood, somebody would clean the windows, and somebody would start pumping gas. As Sheldon and his partners rolled out this vision in more than 150 stations across Western Canada, they killed the competition. A gas station in Northern California heard about this vision and went one step further. After serving a customer, they would hand that person a little brochure about their service that said, "P.S. We also sell gas." Having a clear vision of great service is the key. Do you think Johnny the bagger saw the vision Barbara painted? Some men see things as they are and say why. Others dream things that never were and say, why not? George Bernard Shaw. "5. Great service requires that everyone catch the vision." I'll never forget one time walking around Give the Kids the World in Orlando, Florida. If a kid is dying and has never been to Disneyland, SeaWorld, MGM, and the like, Give the Kids the World provides that opportunity. Over the last decade, they have brought over 50,000 families to Orlando for a week at no cost to them. The leadership of Give the Kids the World decided that they were in the memory business. I was interested in how far down the organization that vision got. As I walked with the president one day, we passed a maintenance person cutting the grass. I went over to him and asked, "What business are you in here at Give the Kids the World?" He smiled and said, "We make memories." I said, "How do you make memories? You just cut the grass." He said, "I don't make memories by continuing to cut the grass when a family comes by. You can always tell who the sick kid is. So I stop what I'm doing and ask the sick kid or one of his brothers and sisters if they want to help me with my chores. We make memories." Johnny the bagger caught the vision that Barbara had inspired. When Johnny put his quotations into a customer's bag, he was making wonderful memories for them and inspiring his associates to follow suit. Cherish your vision and your dreams. Napoleon Hill. 6. Great service surprises people. Over the years when I have experienced great service, I'm often caught off guard. In fact, I am surprised. I'll never forget the story Milt Garrett told me one day. Milt, who lived at the time in Albuquerque, New Mexico, is a trainer and consultant who periodically has worked with our company. At the end of a week of training, he and his wife Jane took a walk on Friday night. Jane said to him, "Milt, you missed my anniversary this week." Surprised, Milt said, "What anniversary?" 5 years cancer-free, said Jane. 5 years earlier, Jane had had a mastectomy. She and Milt celebrated every year that she was cancer-free. Milt felt awful. He couldn't believe he had forgotten. The week before, when he and Jane had been talking one night, they'd decided that she needed a new car. Since their son was still in college in Australia, they'd decided to wait a year until he graduated. That night, Milt said to himself, "Why am I waiting? I am so lucky that Jane is still in my life." The next morning he called the Saturn dealership in Albuquerque and talked to one of their salespeople. I'm not kidding, the salesman's real name was Billy Graham. Milt explained the situation to Billy, saying that his kids had told him Jane really wanted a white car. "Could you get me a white Saturn by next Saturday when I get back home from training?" Milt asked. Billy told Milt that white Saturns were hard to get. "But if you're going to come in next Saturday, I'll have one ready," he said. The next Saturday morning, Milt told Jane that he was running a bunch of errands, but he invited her to come with him so they could go out to lunch. During their drive, they passed the Saturn dealership. Milt told Jane he had to stop in for some materials because he was giving a speech about Saturn to the Chamber of Commerce. When they entered the dealership, they saw only one car, a white Saturn, in the center of the showroom. "Milt, that's the kind of car I'd love to have," Jane said. She ran over to the Saturn and, with a big grin on her face, got in. When she got out of the car and walked around the front of it, she let out a scream and began to cry. Milt had no idea what had happened. When he got to the front of the car, he saw a beautiful sign on the hood of the car that read, "Yes, Jane, this is your car. Congratulations on 5 years cancer-free. Love, Milt, Billy, and the whole Saturn staff." When Billy saw them coming, he got everyone out of the showroom and into the parking lot so that Milt and Jane could be alone. As they were crying in each other's arms, all of a sudden they heard applause. They looked up to see everyone giving them a hand. It surprised and delighted them, to say the least. What a wonderful way to create a special moment for your customers. In many ways, that's what Johnny the Bagger did. He surprised and delighted his customers. We do not remember days. We remember moments in our lives. Unknown. Seven. Great service begins with anyone. When it comes to great service, everyone makes a difference. For example, what's the most common wake-up call you get in a hotel today? The phone rings, but when you pick it up, there is no one there. The second most common wake-up call greets you with a recording. But again, there is no one there. Today, if you pick up the phone on a wake-up call and there's a human being on the other end, you hardly know what to say. While I was staying at the Marriott in Orlando, the phone rang for my 7 o'clock wake-up call. I picked it up and a woman said, "Good morning, Dr. Blanchard. This is Teresa. It's 7 o'clock. It's going to be 75 and beautiful in Orlando today, but your ticket says you're leaving. Where are you going?" Taken aback, I stammered, "I'm going to New York City." She countered with, "Let me look at the USA Today weather map. Oh no, it's going to be 40 degrees and rainy in New York today. Can't you stay?" Now where do you think I want to stay when I go to Orlando? I want to stay at the Marriott so I can talk to Teresa in the morning. Take it from Johnny and Teresa. Great service begins with anyone. Everyone can be great because everyone can serve. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?